Durk was embroiled in some eternal I need you off of this earth beef.
Lil Durk straight up lost his cool and allegedly threw down $1 million hit on Quando Rondo, and now the whole thing's spinning out of control. Durk's staring at serious charges, while Quando's out here looking over his shoulder every second. Can he dodge this so-called hit, or is his luck about to run out? Here's the wild part. It all came crashing down in court.
I used to always say in my interviews, when talking to rappers, I said, look, if you really have serious beef in your city, all you have to do is go to another state. No one will ever send, someone to kill you on an airplane in a whole different state. You'll be safe. No one's stupid enough to actually do this. Lil Durk proved me wrong. Lil Durk, allegedly, because he hasn't been convicted yet, sent a hit squad to kill Quando Rondo.
On January 23, 2026, federal prosecutors dropped a shocking file in a U.S. District Court for the Central District of California that sent both the streets and the internet into meltdown. The papers accused Lil Durk of putting that $1 million bounty on Quando Rondo back in 2022, and everyone's losing their minds. According to what the feds are saying, Durk didn't go around shouting threats or flashing power moves. He played it slick. A cooperating witness is supposedly about to testify that Durk used coded talk, hinting that someone would be taken care of or rewarded big time if they handled the Rondo problem. In street talk, that's a full green light with serious cash behind it. And it didn't stop there. Prosecutors claim Marcus "Moo-Wop" Wilson, one of Durk's OTF shooters, and another crew member were out here looking for hitters to get the job done. Moo-Wop allegedly promised a whole $1 million bag to anyone ready to slide out to Southern California and handle business. No cap. But this wasn't just talk in a group chat. According to the feds, things went down for real.
Durk was embroiled in some eternal I need you off of this earth beef. That's different.
Because of King Von?
Of course. Not only that, he needed the guys who killed his brother off this earth. Durk is a different breed than a lot of these rappers. I've been telling people that gangster rap done changed. Drill completely eviscerated that. Cause y'all are these guys used to be like, I might not be told about my experience. I might be told about my experience from the past or the homies. The new rapper that fans flock to, they're talking about shit going on now. Things they did, hits they...
On August 19, 2022, a white sedan packed with shooters rolled up on a black Cadillac Escalade at a gas station near the Beverly Center in Los Angeles, thinking Quando Rondo was sitting right inside. They unloaded more than a dozen shots, spraying the ride without even blinking. But somehow, Quando Rondo walked away untouched, not a single scratch. The hit completely missed him, but tragically, his 24-year-old cousin, Sia Lupa Robinson, didn't make it alive. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. The government's calling this a straight-up murder-for-hire job gone wrong. Basically, the feds are saying the whole play was planned, paid for, and executed. They just caught the wrong target. The receipts prosecutors pulled together show some serious coordination and big money behind the move. Investigators followed the paper trail and reportedly found OTF-linked credit cards that paid for flights, hotels, and rental cars for 5 Chicago hitters who touched down in LA just days before the shooting went down. These weren't random dudes spending their own cash. The feds claim this was a fully financed operation from the start. And when the smoke cleared, prosecutors say Durk came through and rewarded his crew, not just with stacks of cash, but also ice, custom grills, cameos in OTF music videos, and even shout-outs in his songs. The government says all of that counts as payment of value under federal law, basically proof that Durk kept his side of the deal. DJ Academics even broke it down in an interview, saying this kind of alleged cross-state drill move is something the rap game's never really seen before. This ain't just rap beef anymore. This is the kind of story that flips the whole industry upside down. Durk got snatched up in Florida on October 24, 2024, while allegedly trying to hop on a flight out the country before the feds caught him. He pled no guilty to every charge, but the judge wasn't playing. No bond, no freedom. They ruled he's both a flight risk and a danger to the streets. Durk's got Drew Fineland, the one they call the billion-dollar lawyer, fighting in his corner, and this man's reputation is no joke. When reporters asked him straight up what Durk's facing if things go sideways, he didn't dance around it. He kept it brutally real. The feds already confirmed they're not pushing for the death penalty, but that doesn't mean Durk's in the clear. Life behind those federal walls is still on the table, and that's a serious reality check. This trial's been pushed back over and over just because of how deep and tangled this case runs. We're talking over 30,000 pages of evidence, multiple co-defendants, and a ton of messy discovery problems that have lawyers buried in paperwork. Now it's finally locked in. Trial starts April 21st, 2026, with a pre-trial conference set for March 30th. Until then, Durk's been spending heavy time in the hole, stuck in solitary confinement after allegedly breaking rules, including getting caught with a phone he wasn't supposed to have. This is where things start getting murky, unanswered questions stacking up like bodies in a long-running street feud. Prosecutors say their entire case leans hard on a cooperating witness, and everyone's waiting to see who's about to take that stand.
Life?
This is a life imprisonment case.
Okay.
There's no in between. This isn't state court. There's no,
Right.
hey, we'll do 10, 15. It's a life case.
Right. Could it be a capital murder case where he's possibly facing the death penalty?
Well, that under the federal system, that possibility exists. We've not been given notice of that. Like you hear that they'll give notice of the intent to seek the death penalty. There's not been that issue in this.
In street talk, that cooperating witness basically means a snitch, someone flipping sides. But here's the mystery. Nobody knows who this person really is, if their testimony's even solid, or whether this so-called coded language the feds keep talking about really means what they claim it does. Maybe made straight means what they're saying, or maybe it's something totally different. Durk's legal team is coming in hot, saying the evidence is weak and built on assumptions. They're calling out the prosecution for using shady tactics, like twisting rap lyrics into confessions, instead of seeing them as what they are.
He was like Durk would do like he'll do shit like rob people and stuff like that. Like he was into doing all that. You know what I'm saying? Like I ain't gonna take nothing from him, but like far as like a killer and all that, nah, man. It was just people around him, you know. And he was going to the top. You got to take the wolves with you, you know. And he decided to take the wolves.
Art. Durk's lawyers filed motion after motion, trying to toss the lyrics, block the informant's testimony, and even dismiss the whole case. But the judge wasn't having it. That motion got denied fast. So the big question still hangs in the air. Did Lil Durk really call the shot, or are the feds forcing a story that doesn't add up? Some say the government's just connecting random dots, trying to turn rumors into a full picture that ain't really there. Now, to really get why prosecutors believe Durk would allegedly drop $1 million on another rapper's head, you gotta understand the Von connection, where all this smoke started. To know that, you gotta know who King Von truly was to Durk. Durk and Von weren't blood relatives, no family ties, but their bond ran deeper than some cousins. Durk always called Von his twin and baby bro because the two moved alike, thought alike, and looked at the game the same way. And this wasn't for clout. This wasn't some label PR stunt for OTF. People close to them say their connection was real, built on loyalty, shared struggle, and a dream of turning street life into something bigger. This story really started around 2017, 2018, right after Von got out from a prison stretch and began taking rap serious.
Yeah, no, listen, I understand your point. And I just feel that it ends up creating a cycle of men going back into prison because they don't trust the police. They don't think the police are going to handle things right. So they take it upon themselves. And then they end up doing prison time. And, you know, if your daughter had lived, she probably wouldn't want her dad in prison. Like, you know, for example, you look at the Jimmy Henchman situation. I don't know if you're familiar with the whole beef with G-Unit, but at one point, Jimmy Henchman's son gets smacked up by a bunch of G-Unit dudes. He ends up having a role in the murder of the guy that smacked up his son. Now he's doing double life, right? Now, from people from the outside, it's like, oh, he did the right thing. He stood up for his son. But I'm pretty sure his son would want his dad home and not standing up for him because he could actually hug.
Durk spotted that raw energy and storytelling Von had in the drill scene. He saw potential and took him under his wing. He mentored Von, helped him focus, and officially signed him to OTF around late 2017 or early 2018. That move flipped Von's whole life. Soon, Von started blowing up, dropping Crazy Story, then Crazy Story 2.0, and jumping on major collabs that turned his name into a street anthem. That mentorship didn't just make Von a star, it made Von family in Durk's eyes. And that's exactly why the feds think the tragedy that hit later might have pushed Durk to a breaking point. Welcome to O Block, the place that shaped both their bond and their legacy. But Durk and Von's relationship ran way deeper than just music business or label deals. They weren't just label mates, they were in real-life situations together, studio sessions, street moments, and even catching cases side by side. Back in 2019, both were arrested in Atlanta for an alleged shooting and robbery outside the Varsity restaurant, a wild case that had everyone talking. Durk's charges were later dropped in 2022, but by then, their brotherhood had already been tested in the trenches for real. King Von's presence gave Durk something money couldn't buy, street credibility that hit different. Von brought that raw, authentic energy that made everything Durk did feel 10 times more real. He had the block on lock, respected, feared, and loved all at once. Whether you see them as equals or believe one leaned on the other's or more, one thing's for sure, their connection was solid, built on trust and loyalty. Then, tragedy struck. On November 6, 2020, King Von was shot and killed during a shootout outside an Atlanta hookah lounge involving Quando Rondo's crew. That's the exact moment prosecutors say the whole chain of events began, the spark that allegedly led to that $1 million bounty. Durk reportedly found out about Von's death in real time through fans flooding his Instagram live. You could see the pain hit instantly. He ended the stream, visibly shaken. Moments later, he posted a heartbreaking tribute that read, "My twin gone. I love you, baby bro." That loss changed everything for Durk. His sound, his focus, his energy, all shifted. Just a month later, he dropped The Voice, a full-on tribute to Von, with his face on the cover and songs like Still Trappin' carrying Von's voice and spirit. It wasn't just music anymore. It was Durk keeping his brother's name alive through every lyric. Durk's grief wasn't something he kept hidden. It played out in public, raw and constant, stitched into every lyric he dropped. You could feel the pain in every verse, every hook, every performance. But according to prosecutors, his response didn't stop at honoring his brother through music. They claim it went way further than that. The feds are trying to flip Durk's lyrics into evidence, saying his bars show intent or even glorify violence. They're digging through his songs line by line, trying to prove the music reflects real-life actions. But Durk's defense team is fighting that hard, arguing that his lyrics are art, not confessions, storytelling from experience, not self-incrimination. And that's where things get complicated, because the question nobody can really answer still hangs in the air. Would Lil Durk be locked up in federal custody right now if he had never signed King Von? If he had kept his distance from someone with that kind of street rap, a real certified stepper whose name carried both power and danger? The prosecutor's entire theory rides on one belief, that Durk loved Von so much or was so invested in his loyalty that he was willing to risk everything, his career, his freedom, and maybe even his life, just to avenge his fallen brother.
I still wouldn't wish it on him, but I would want to do something to him.
Right, but then you're putting your own freedom at risk.
Yeah, you're
as
right.
opposed to letting law enforcement do their job.
You're right.
Because let's just say you go and kill that person, everyone will look at you like a hero, right? Social media will be like, free Lil Tim. Lil Tim's a hero. He's the best. But law enforcement is going to still charge you with murder.
Yeah.
Probably,
but it's like,
first-degree murder, because they'll probably prove that you planned it based on what happened to your daughter.
Yeah, but just it being my daughter, I wouldn't even care. Like, I wouldn't have no sympathy behind it just because it's my daughter.
Federal murder for hire cases almost never end well. Conviction rates sit around 95%, meaning once those charges hit, it's nearly game over. Durk had to know the odds were stacked sky high against him, so people can't help but ask, did grief cloud his judgment? Did loyalty to the code make him feel like he had no choice? Or could it be that none of this actually went down the way prosecutors are spinning it? To really understand this story, you gotta understand the block and the code that came with it. The bond between Lil Durk and King Von can't be separated from where they came up, because where they grew up explains why prosecutors think Durk might have allegedly greenlit a move that risky. O Block, Parkway Gardens, sitting on the 6400 block of South Martin Luther King Jr. Drive in Chicago's South Side. It's one of the most infamous and active neighborhoods in America. Just hearing the name carries weight in the streets. O Block itself pays tribute to O.D. Perry, a young member of the Black Disciples who was killed in 2011, a moment that turned pain into legacy and made loss part of the block's very identity. Originally built in the 1950s as Parkway Gardens, the complex was supposed to be affordable housing, a safe place for working families. But over time, everything changed. Years of neglect, redlining, the crack era, and broken government systems turned that promise into struggle. By the late 2000s and early 2010s, the area had transformed into a battlefield, a hot zone in the war between factions of the Black disciples and gangster disciples. Between 2011 and 2014, O-Block reportedly saw more shootings than any other neighborhood Black in Chicago. And that's not exaggeration, that's documented. Life there was survival mode 24/7. In that kind of environment, bonds aren't just friendships, they're lifelines. The connections formed in those streets run deep, shaped by years of poverty, lost hope, constant threats from rivals, and the harsh reality that every day could be your last. When loyalty's built under that kind of pressure, it becomes something unbreakable. So when prosecutors talk about Durk's motives, they're not just talking about fame or money. They're talking about a man raised by the code of get back, where loyalty, loss, and survival all blend into one. When the system fails you, schools, jobs, and even the police, the block becomes your family. Blood ties stop mattering when your day ones from the trenches ride for you harder than anyone else ever could. In that world, loyalty is the real currency. Loyalty to your block, loyalty to your fallen brothers, and loyalty to the unspoken code, the one that says you ride for yours no matter what, or risk paying a heavy price from both your ops and your own side. In that environment, backdooring someone, betraying a homie is the ultimate sin, punished harshly. The only thing that's respected is unwavering loyalty, sharing money, standing firm in beefs, and getting back for your losses. That's how love and loyalty get measured in the trenches. And this same mindset, prosecutors argue, is what shaped Durk's alleged actions, what they call the cycle of get back. It all traces back to O.D. Perry's murder in 2011, the spark that lit a wildfire of retaliation. After his death, the violence in the area exploded, with dozens of shootings in the years that followed. Between 2011 and 2014, there were reportedly around 19 separate shootings, many involving young teens sliding in memory of their fallen friends, targeted drills meant to even the score. One of the most infamous names tied to that chaos was Jakira K.I. Barnes, a teenage girl connected to a GD crew. She was rumored to have been involved in several shootings herself before being killed in 2014, another tragic link in that endless chain of revenge. Her death showed how deep the war had gone, where every bullet fired sparked another one flying back. Then came FBG Duck's shocking murder in 2020, right in Chicago's upscale Gold Coast, a hit that brought national attention. Federal prosecutors later hit several O-Block connected members with RICO charges, saying Duck's killing was straight-up retaliation for his diss tracks, songs that mocked fallen O-Block members like O.D. Perry. Informants even told investigators that there were bounties being tossed around, allegedly up to $100,000 for Duck's head. That's how high the stakes got, how far the code of get back had spread, where pride, pain, and payback all collided. In the streets, that cycle becomes endless, one hit leading to another, each side trying to prove loyalty through violence. And that same culture of retaliation, prosecutors say, is what might have bled into the choices Durk's now being accused of making.
Understand, man, because when you look at this whole situation, when you look at the Lil Durk NBA YoungBoy beef, the way it's painted in the media, King Von's dead. Lil Durk is facing life in prison. Quando has a Fed case. Slutty gets killed. NBA YoungBoy's in jail as well. There are no winners. Nobody won. No one could say that we're the winner here. Everyone took losses on both sides, and the winner is nobody. The winner is actually law enforcement. That's the only winner. Law enforcement and the morgue. Those are the only people that really profited and made money off the situation. Everyone else took loss.
This is the world that shaped both FBG Duck and King Von. A world where not sliding after losing someone gets you branded as soft, an open invite for more smoke. In this code, letting things go means weakness. But getting back, no matter how long it takes or who does it, is seen as loyalty, honor, and respect for the fallen. It's how bonds are tested and brotherhood is proven in the trenches. That same mindset was spoken on by El Tim, the man who shot King Von and later beat the case on self-defense. When asked about the never-ending cycle of retaliation, El Tim broke it down with honesty, showing how deep this logic runs in street culture. He admitted that, yeah, he understands the cycle, but when the pain's fresh, that logic doesn't matter. Emotion takes over, and the urge for payback hits harder than reason ever could. And that's exactly the kind of calculation prosecutors think Lil Durk made, or maybe failed to make. Von died in November 2020, and the alleged bounty, along with the supposed hit, went down in August 2022, almost 4 years later. That's not a split-second emotional reaction, not grief clouding judgment in a moment. That's time. 2 long years to think, plan, and decide if revenge was worth losing everything for. Federal prosecutors are framing this whole thing as the O-Block street code turned federal conspiracy. They're saying Durk carried the principles of loyalty and get back, the ones that ruled his neighborhood, right into a high-stakes nationwide case of murder for hire. And the alleged rewards they're pointing to, the cash, the jewelry, the cameos, the shout-outs in music videos, they're calling that the street economy, just scaled up by fame and money. The same code, just with millions attached. Now comes the haunting question sitting at the heart of this story. Did the same code that made Lil Durk into who he is also set him up for destruction? Was he too deep in loyalty to ever walk away from the smoke? Or was there really no way out once grief, pride, and the streets started pulling the strings? The answers are still buried under court files, loyalty, and silence, and only time's gonna reveal how deep this story really runs. The federal case against Lil Durk isn't just about whether he actually made the call. It's about how the evidence is read and whether the government can really prove their story beyond a reasonable doubt. This is way bigger than street talk. It's a legal chess match playing out in front of a jury. Durk's lawyer, Drew Feinling, the man they call the billion-dollar lawyer, has gone to battle for some of the biggest names in hip-hop. Big Meech, Cardi B, Boosie, YFN Lucci, NBA Youngboy, you name it. He's seasoned in federal warfare and knows how to fight when the odds look impossible. When he speaks on plea negotiations in the feds, he keeps it real. He knows this system inside out. The defense's whole approach is locked on one thing: dismantling the government's theory. They're arguing the prosecution's so-called evidence is mostly circumstantial, nothing direct, just speculation dressed up as fact. They're saying the feds are twisting coded slang into confessions, and worse, treating rap lyrics like literal statements instead of artistic storytelling. Durk's team filed multiple motions trying to block those lyrics from being used at all, saying it's unfair and prejudicial. They even went as far as trying to get the entire case dismissed, claiming there were unreported threats against officials that could have biased the process. But the judge wasn't buying it and shut that motion down. Still, one move raised eyebrows. Durk himself objected to the recent trial delays, signaling he's not scared to face what's coming. Some say that confidence means the defense thinks the prosecution's case might collapse once it's picked apart in court. But the prosecutors aren't backing down either. They say they got real receipts, not rumors, not lyrics, straight bank records and transaction trails. The government claims OTF-linked credit cards paid for flights, hotels, and rentals that brought 5 Chicago shooters to Los Angeles just days before the hit went down. That's not coded talk. That's paper evidence that leaves a digital trail. And it's not stopping there. A cooperating witness is expected to take the stand and spill exactly how the bag, the $1 million bounty, was communicated and paid out. That testimony could make or break this case. One side's calling it loyalty twisted by grief. The other says it's a cold, calculated crime fueled by fame and power. And soon, a jury's gonna decide which version sticks.
You gotta give it some time. Sometimes it just be so fresh where you don't think it all the way through, but it's like 20, 30 years down the line, you just sat in jail for 20 years. You like, yeah, maybe it was a better way to take it or something smarter to do. But at the moment, you just be so up of what they did to your child, you don't even care at the moment, but it be so fresh. I think that's just, you have to give it some time sometimes, just
The defense is gearing up to tear apart the informant's credibility, but history shows that when it comes to federal cases, snitch testimony can be dangerously effective. Time after time, it's flipped whole cases on their heads. Just look at the old Block 6, the crew charged in the FBG Duck murder. Every one of them got hit with life sentences in the feds. The prosecution built that case on the same pillars: coordination, money trails, and cooperating witnesses, and it worked. Now, people are asking if history is about to repeat itself. When L. Tim was asked whether he thought any of Durk's co-defendants might fold and work with the government, his answer said a lot and left more questions hanging in the air. That's one of the biggest unknowns right now. Will Durk's co-defendant stay solid, or will someone crack under the pressure? Because if even one person flips and takes the stand saying Durk called the shot, that changes everything. The case goes from shaky to solid real quick. But if they all hold it down and keep quiet, the prosecution's left leaning harder on circumstantial evidence and that one cooperating witness. Adding more fuel, Cialapa Robinson's family, Quando Rondo's late cousin, has filed a wrongful death lawsuit naming Durk too, piling on civil pressure. Even if Durk somehow beats the criminal charges, that civil case could follow him for years, draining time, money, and energy. And this trial isn't just about Durk anymore. It's raising huge questions across the entire music and legal world. Can rap lyrics really be used as proof of intent? When does art stop being storytelling and start being treated as a confession? And what about coded street talk, words that mean one thing in the trenches but something totally different to everyone else? How's a court supposed to judge that? During an interview, Vlad even posed a cold hypothetical to L. Tim, asking him what he'd say to Durk if he got the chance. The weight of that question hits hard. What is there to say to a man who had everything? The fame, the money, the influence, and now sits in federal custody, facing the possibility of losing it all for good. Whether this turns out to be justice or tragedy depends on what that jury decides when the time comes. After breaking down every angle, the allegations, the loyalty, the culture, and the law, one question still echoes through the case. Did Lil Durk really put that $1 million bag on Quando Rondo's head? Prosecutors say yes, claiming a cooperating witness will testify that Durk used coded words to communicate the offer, a $1 million reward for taking out Rondo. If that testimony holds up in court, it could seal Durk's fate forever. But if it falls apart, this might become one of the biggest federal rap trials the streets have ever seen. Coded language has always been a tricky battlefield. It's wide open for interpretation. What Lil Durk allegedly meant when he said someone would be made straight or handsomely rewarded is exactly what the jury's got to figure out. The defense says this whole angle is nothing but speculation dressed up as evidence, while prosecutors argue that the context, Von's murder, the later shooting, the money trail, and the supposed rewards makes it all crystal clear. Only Durk truly knows what he said and what he meant by it, and he's standing firm on his not guilty plea. The jury's gonna have to decide whether those words were coded instructions or just harmless talk twisted into something bigger than they were. And here's where it gets even messier. Would that drill have happened without the alleged bounty? The 5 Chicago hitters who allegedly flew out to Los Angeles still made their own choices. They're the ones who, according to prosecutors, carried out the ambush. So were they just following orders or acting on their own out of loyalty to OTF and the urge to get back for King Von? Or maybe there was some other motivation behind it entirely. If a bounty really existed, it definitely added fuel to the fire. It gave extra motivation. But proving that Durk's alleged words directly caused the shooting instead of just lining up with something that was already in motion is another story completely. The line between influence and responsibility is razor thin here. And then comes the hardest question of them all. Could Durk have stopped the cycle? Could he have walked away before things spiraled this far? Vlad put it bluntly when he described what Durk might be thinking now sitting in that cell. All the success, all the respect, all the pain that followed him from the block to the charts. Could he have done anything differently? Or was he trapped by the same culture that made him? Because that's the truth about O-Block's code. Once you're part of that world of loyalty and get back, walking away from smoke isn't easy. Sometimes it feels impossible.
Oh, that he's sitting in a cell right now thinking, man, this situation really is not as serious as I thought it was. You know, King Von, you know, it was his fault in terms of what happened. Instead of, you know, me going along with this whole slide for Von nonsense, I should have looked at it maturely and said, well, you know, Von did something to cause this situation. You know,
Right.
Here I am, a top 10 rapper worth tens of millions of dollars, and I'm sitting in a jail cell eating bologna sandwiches right now. And I may never get out. Over what? Over a situation that Durk could have really just let go. He didn't need to do any of this shit. And since he's the leader, he could have told all his people to stand down.
But could he? If Lil Durk had stayed silent after King Von's death, it might have cost him everything. His credibility, his rep, and even his identity. The streets were watching closely, waiting to see how he'd move. In that world, failing to respond can look like weakness, something that can destroy your name faster than any headline ever could. Now all eyes are
Durk
on
was
what
embroiled in
happens
some
next, especially
eternal
with the witnesses and co-defendants. This trial isn't just about Durk, it's a web of people, stories, and secrets. The government's case leans heavily on one cooperating witness whose identity is still protected for safety reasons. But if any of Durk's co-defendants start cracking under pressure and fold to get lighter sentences, that could blow this case wide open. His legal risk would skyrocket overnight. On the flip side, if they all hold it down and the defense successfully exposes holes in the witness's story, that could seriously weaken the government's entire setup. Because while federal conviction rates do hover around 95%, that number includes plea deals, cases where defendants take the hit before even reaching trial. But when cases like this actually go to trial, the outcome isn't so predictable. A single doubt, one shaky witness, or a hole in the evidence can flip everything. So what does justice even look like here? Sia Lupa Robinson, Quando Rondo's cousin, was just 24 years old. He wasn't even the target that day. He was simply in the wrong car at the wrong time, and he lost his life because of it. If the prosecutors are right, and Durk really did order the hit, then under federal law, he's responsible for that death, even if Robinson wasn't the one he allegedly aimed for. The murder for hire statute doesn't care if the wrong person dies. It only cares that the plan was made and executed. But here's the painful flip side. If the government's case really is built on circumstantial evidence, misread coded talk, and a shaky witness, then Durk could end up spending the rest of his life behind bars for something he never ordered. That's the nightmare scenario his legal team's been warning about. The truth will start coming to light on April 21st, 2026, when both sides will finally put their cards on the table. The Fed's theory versus Durk's fight for freedom. But even with a verdict, not every question will get answered, because no outcome can bring back King Von or Sia Lupa Robinson, and no courtroom decision can erase the cycle of violence that's been swallowing lives in too many hoods for way too long. It still won't settle whether the hip-hop industry could have stepped in sooner, or if stepping in was ever even possible. And it won't touch the deepest question at the heart of all this. How did a kid from Parkway Gardens, someone who rapped his way out of struggle to become one of the biggest names in the game, end up staring down life in federal prison over smoke that didn't even start with him, a fight that went down outside an Atlanta hookah lounge? Maybe the truth is simple. The streets never really let go. The same code that raises you, protects you, and gives you power can also come back to claim everything you built. The loyalty that made Durk a star could be the same loyalty that's now threatening to destroy him. Or maybe the real story is the complete opposite. Maybe Durk is innocent, and this whole thing is a case of prosecutors reaching too far, twisting lyrics and rumors into a federal narrative that doesn't hold up once the facts hit the courtroom. Maybe, when it's all said and done, a man gets his name cleared, proving that fame and loyalty don't always have to end in tragedy. But for now, no one really knows. We'll have to wait until the jury decides. And even then, some questions might never be answered. Because in stories like this, where loyalty, fame, and pain collide, the truth is never clean. It's messy, it's human, and it leaves scars that no verdict can erase. If you made it this far, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share this video. There's more wild stories, more deep dives, and more untold truths coming your way. You don't want to miss what's next.